Hi, everybody. This is Bob Olson with Afterlife TV. We're at afterlifetv.com, and we're here once again. We are honored with the presence to be able to interview this celebrity medium, James Van Praagh, once again. He has a great sense of humor. I love interviewing you. Excellent answers. Thanks so much for coming back, James.
Thanks, Bob. I appreciate it. I feel like I've been with you the whole day. It's pretty amazing. So,
I know.
Thanks
it's amazing.
very much. Oh, anytime.
It's crazy. Well, anyways, we always have fun when we get together. Today we are going to talk about, are your loved ones in spirit trying to tell you something? I'm gonna allow this to go in any direction that it wants to go today, and I have a feeling it might fall some interesting directions. But first of all, I'll just ask you the silly question: are loved ones in spirit trying to contact us, James?
Yes, more than likely they are, Bob.
Yes. Okay.
And I should let people know that everybody who passes out of the physical body, they all attend their own funerals, their own memorial services, always. And it seems like the men will often be aware of who's paying what. And I've been through funerals, or wakes, I should say, where they've actually looked at their body and they'd say, oh, why, that darn makeup on me. I look like a sissy. Why am I wearing that makeup? Why'd they put that on me? And where the woman might say, oh, why'd they put me in that darn dress? I hated that dress when I was alive, and now they put me in the casket. Had that happen a lot. And everybody visits their own memorial services or funerals, for sure. My dad came to me at his wake, and it was funny because I was talking to my principal, and she was a nun. And when I was a little boy, I went to a Catholic school.
Oh, yeah.
And that principal with the penguin outfit on, the whatever they call it.
Yes.
I'm very sacrilegious. Don't mean that. Don't mean to offend anybody. But it was funny because oh my gosh, it was like 40 years after this lady was dead, and I'm talking to her like, I can't. As I'm speaking with her, I'm thinking, I can't believe she's still around. Is she still around? What is my? And as I'm speaking to her, my father comes behind me in a spirit form, and he said, "Thanks for putting my teeth in. I look pretty good." And we were just 2 hours earlier looking down at his body saying, wow, we put his teeth in, we're glad, because he really looks great.
Wow, that's...
How often do people do that? Look down at bodies and say, oh, they look really good now. Just so sick. It's like, oh, yeah.
Now, that's amazing. Now, a lot of mediums say they have trouble connecting with their loved ones in spirit soon after their passing. You were able to do that with your dad.
Oh, yeah, right away. I have a hard time now bringing through my own personal mother and father, and I can't. If I want to, I can't do that.
Yeah.
And I think most mediums can't do that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because you're so involved and you can't discern between the two.
Yeah.
I can bring them through for my siblings, but I can't bring them through for me personally. But with my father, the experience was pretty amazing, pretty profound. He was in a coma, and he was getting ready to pass on, and the doctor said by 12 o'clock at night he'll be gone. And we all gathered around the bed, and we said, Dad, it's okay to go. It's okay to go. And he said to me telepathically, he said, I'm not going until you all decide not to fight over my house.
Oh, wow.
Not to fight over the house.
Yeah.
And I looked at him, he said, don't fight over the house. Now, we decided, no, we will not fight over your house. And once I let him know, we will not fight over the house. You have our promise. We won't fight over our house. Do not worry. And he left. He left 3 hours before the 12 o'clock. The doctor was shocked. Now, when he was communicating with me above his head. The energy of my father was outside his body, and it was above his head area. And I find that most people who are in comas, in dementia, they're a step out of the body. They're usually out of the body, very close to the body, still attached to the body, but also right over the body or side of the body. And that's very, very true. And many people will witness a sense of vapor when the final exit. There'll be a vapor rising out of the body, and they'll see that, and that's the spirit leaving the body. A lot of people experience that. My father immediately said to me, oh my gosh, you got it right. Now, my father was a born skeptic, a cynic, a skeptic, didn't believe in what I did. He didn't know what it was, but he certainly didn't believe in it.
Yeah.
He watched my television every single day. He was very proud of me, but didn't necessarily believe in it. And I don't know what his belief system was. But as soon as he passed out of that body and to the other side of life, one of the first things he said within 20 minutes of his passing was, oh my gosh, you got it right. I'm alive. I've seen your mother. She gave me a brand new tan suit, and I have a bunch of new shoes. And oh my goodness, I met a sister I didn't even know I had. And then we did research and found out that his mother had a miscarriage
Oh my
before
goodness. That's
and
amazing.
it was amazing. And for 3 days after that, I was like doing automatic writing, writing things down from him that he was discovering on the other side. And he was that type of person. He would be very much a detective trying to figure things out. And he was giving me all these information. I have a file full of the things he talked about, who he met when he first passed over, what the conditions were like when he passed over, the atmosphere, how he was felt like the earth was, what do you say, quicksand. He said, being in the earth, it's like quicksand. It pulls you down and you feel so heavy. And then you leave and you're free of it all. You're free of the quicksand, he said.
Oh, wow.
So very
That's
interesting.
fascinating. That really is interesting stuff. Boy, someday you're going to put that in the book, all that stuff?
I maybe one day.
Yeah,
Maybe.
It's very cool. Now, when you say this, I just want to say, before we move on, even though you have this great experience where you can communicate with your dad, I think some people are under the misperception that mediums don't grieve because they have this ability to communicate with spirit. You still grieved his physical loss, his companionship, those sorts of things. Did you not?
Of course, because I'm a human being. As human beings, we have to go through that grief process.
Yeah.
Oh, you bet. Very, very much so. I'm more aware, so I know that he lives on, that there's no death, that he's just changed form.
Right.
But sure, that's that physical part that you miss, and every human being has that you miss the physicality of it.
Yeah.
At the same time, saying that, I'm very, very happy where he's at right now. And I remember my mother, when she was passing, had a stroke, and she was an invalid for 10 years in a bed, couldn't walk, eat, couldn't speak. And I used to pray. I used to pray that she would leave the body. I said, please, please let her go, let her go, let her go. She could only go when it was destined for her to go. When it was her time for her to leave, she went. I could have done the best I could with prayer, but you know what? I do believe we come in at a certain time and we leave at a certain time.
Yeah.
I think, everything that I think is predestined. When we leave, even, Bob, this might sound weird, even when someone is killed, I do sometimes think that's predestined.
Yeah.
Do I think someone's free will is involved sometimes? Yes, I do. I think it'd be either one. I think if someone goes to an ATM machine and some guy decides to hold them up and shoot them right there, and that wasn't in the plans, that was not, as I say, in the cards, that now they've created what's called karma because you interrupted that person's destiny. And now you have set up a karmic condition with that other person. You'll have to live through it another time.
Yeah.
So I do believe there's a time to be born, a time to die, but I do believe there's sometimes someone else's free will impinges upon your free will.
Interesting. Well, with that said, I think the next question, and because I've heard a lot of similarities in messages that come through when someone, immediately crosses over and they're trying to contact their loved ones here.
Yeah.
There's usually certain things that they want to say. What are some of the most common messages that tend to come through you as a medium that that teaches you that this is what they want their loved ones here on the physical plane to know?
Right. Good question. First of all, very good question. They want us to, number one, there's 5 death. There's no death. They're not dead. I'm not dead. I'm not dead. I'm not dead. They want them to know that they will go to that person all the time right after they die, and they'll go, well, I'm not dead. They'll try to whisper at them. They'll try to shove them, push them. They'll try anything they can to let them know they're still alive. Very, very much like the movie Ghost, where Patrick Swayze was trying to get through to Demi Moore. I'm still alive. I'm still alive. He was trying any ways he could to get it through to her that he was alive. Now, it's so funny because it's like a bull in a china shop sometimes. They try so hard. But it does seem that it's a very subtle energies. It's the subtle things, whether it's a whisper, whether it's a blowing on them, whether it's a scent, they can project a scent, whether it's a song they hear. These are the subtle ways that spirits get through to their loved ones to let them know that they're fine. They want to let them know they're fine, that there's no death, that they're very alive. The other thing I find a lot is they want that person to move on with their life. Because there's some important things going on for that other person, and they have to get involved in life. If they spend a lot of their time grieving this person, the other person's not going to be involved in their life, and they might miss out on certain opportunities.
Sure. Well, that's interesting. And how about, like, I know a lot of people wonder if it's okay for them to remarry. Is this?
Sure.
I mean,
Sure.
have you ever heard anybody say no?
I have had experiences where, be it a husband or a wife passed over, and I've had so many of these where the husband lets he'll come through to his wife and say, I'm going to help you find a new mate.
Ah,
And the wife said, "No way! I wouldn't want to. He's the only one in my life I ever want to be married to. I'll never find anybody as good as him. That'll never happen."
yeah.
Years later, 5 years later, they come up to me at some event and say, "You broke through my husband and said I'm going to find somebody." Well, and this is my new husband. I want to introduce you to him. It seems that spirits want the best for us, whatever that might be. They want the best for us,
Yeah.
and they will do the best they can. I've also found people that have been together, let's say 70 years, been married 75 years. One of them passes over, and then the other one passes over, and then the child comes to see me for reading, and I bring through the mother, and I say, they're not together. Well, why would they be together? They lived together for 75 years. They got to be together.
Right.
No, they're not together. Your mother's in a very different place than your father is. She's at a different level than he is, and they're okay with that. They can see each other, but they're learning in different places. They're living in different places.
Right.
So
Right.
just because two souls that come together for that many years doesn't mean that they've spent eternity together.
Sure.
They don't have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well.
there are a lot of people looking at this very happy. I just told them that.
Yeah. Well. No, I've always known that Melissa will be at a higher, vibrating at a higher frequency than me. There's no question in my mind about
Oh,
that.
Bob, come on, really?
Well, she does it here, so I assume she's going to do it there. How soon after someone's passing, typically will they attempt these after-death communications?
It's a very good question, and the answer I can give you is not an easy one because I've had both situations. Depending on, and usually I answer it this way by saying, depending on the type of death, the situation that happened, the conditions of the death, whether it be someone who is the prana, the energy of life, was dragged out, pulled out of them through the illness, like cancer or AIDS or something that really debilitated the body. It really pulled at the energy. There was no energy left for that soul. It seems to me that there would be a tendency for that spirit to want to have a longer adjustment period, or a period where they have to recharge, if you will, to bring back the prana, the energy of life. I have many of those souls have told me that when they pass over to the other side, there's a sort of a hospital, not a hospital like we would know, but one of the spirit, one where they rejuvenate, recharge that energy, that prana of life, and bring them back to completedness, to wholeness. And that takes, earth time could be several months, yeah? I've also, though, have done a reading for somebody. It was a gentleman, and this is many, many years ago, and his partner had passed over on a Thursday of AIDS, HIV. He passed over on a Thursday, and this was a Saturday night, and he came through.
Oh, yeah.
And talked about the lighting on the sidewalk in front of their house, that they were just redoing it the week before, and they couldn't get two of the bulbs to work. And sure enough, he said that just happened last week, and he just died this past Thursday. So he came through like that. So it all depends. I mean, and if someone who passed away with a heart attack is much easier and faster to come through than someone that died of a long illness. It's just it's different. Yeah. It's all different. So I don't think there's any one way, but I'll just tell you the tendency is depending on the conditions of the death.
Yeah. And I hear a lot of people in this field, especially mediums, talk about waiting a certain amount of time before you go see a medium. One reason could be that, but the other reason probably has more to do with the person's grief, their level of grief. Would you agree with that or what?
Parts of it. I tell people, listen, if you want to come see me, there's got to be like a 3-month wait.
Okay.
Because I believe that even though the spirit might have passed quickly, maybe it was very fast, and they're okay, I want to respect that spirit enough to give them an adjustment period to acclimate themselves to the new conditions of life that they have now. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to, I feel bad about pulling them back down to this dimension, down to this 3-dimensional heavy world where they have to deal with this heavy earth energy, this dimension. I want them to be very prepared, very adjusted, very acclimated to the new conditions that they have in that life before they come back here. I think it's only, I don't know, for me personally, I think it's out of respect to the spirit. As far as a living person goes, I think that they have to realize that that there is an adjustment period for the living and the dead, that for themselves as well. Maybe a grieving period. It's also harder because when that person just passes over, the ones left behind are in the heavy grief, heavy, 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 heavy grief. So when you think about it, the spirit not only has to come back and deal with the heaviness of the earth and the density of this dimension, but then also have to deal with the heaviness of the grief affecting their loved one. Not too pretty for those people, for those spirits. So,
Yeah.
it's very, very difficult. So, I agree with that. I think it's respectful for a wait a little bit adjustment period. I do.
That's neat. And what I love about that is you're just treating them like people. You're just treating them like you would treat anybody here. Someone's been through something traumatic, something major in their lives. Give them some time to go get over that. Even though, and this is where it gets a little confusing, even though there's no time or space or whatever up there, that's, I think, why you probably use the word the adjustment period. You're not really inferring time, but there's, maybe whatever it is that they're dealing with in terms of time is what we would experience as linear time, right?
Right. And you have to realize that there's a certain mindset that they're also dealing with. So, for instance, if somebody passes up with a drug addiction and with an overdose, that mindset is still very, very real because those memories are very, very real. They're now in a world, they're now in a dimension where those thoughts are real things.
Yeah.
And those addictions continue on. So in their mind, they'll still think of the addiction. They'll still think of that way, that mindset of being. And even if it's a depression, they'll still have that because that's who they think they are.
Yeah.
And it might take a little bit for them to realize, whether it's through their guides and elders or family members that have passed over, to help them to realize the new world that they're in, the new space that they're in, the new mindset that they're in.
Yeah.
That they no longer need drugs. They no longer need those physical things that make up who they think they are or who they were. So they're beyond that. But it's so funny because many, many times I brought through spirits who still hold on to those addictions, whether it's alcohol or drugs or money, whatever it might be. And many of them think that's their life, that's real. So there is an adjustment period. There is an acclimate yourself to the higher forms of life, the higher ways of life, not the earthly things.
Yeah.
So there's
Okay.
that.
Well, it's interesting. In saying that, again, the subject here are your loved ones in spirit trying to tell you something. Do they try to tell you things about, like, fix the washing machine or pay the rent or what?
Sure.
Do they? It's fascinating to me that they would be so concerned about these very physical things.
It's very interesting. But the messages I get through sometimes, I used to say I must have a guide who was a mechanic because I would get through all this information sometimes about bearings and wheels and electronics. I don't know a thing about cars. It's like this wire here and you got to redo this wire here. And sure enough, their father who comes through was a mechanic or was someone who loved cars.
Yeah.
And he'll talk about that. Or many times, let's say a husband comes through for his wife and they'll discuss fixing the roof or, that hole in the roof or there's a part of the floor which goes down. I was trying to fix that before I died. They'll look out for us. They'll continue looking out for us. Just because they left the body doesn't mean they still have the same concerns that they had on the earth. They still have the same exact concerns that they had here. And because they love us so much, they're going to look out for us with these things.
Yeah.
I also got to tell you that people often say, well, whether it's the skeptics or certain people don't believe, mediums bring through these innate stupid details about things. Well, you know what? If I know that if Spirit comes through and said, you know what, you just changed my picture frame from this little black frame to this ornate thing with hearts all around it.
Yeah.
Might sound very trivial, but the person that did that, that's pretty specific, and no one would know that. So those little things actually add up to a lot.
I certainly have found it seems like the most mundane but specific things that are the most profound when someone's getting a reading, and that's really what can cross them over that threshold of skepticism to really even a knowing, not just a believing, but a knowing. There's no way that this stranger could possibly have known this,
Listen, I remember one of the ones, Bob, which blew me away, and I always get blown away by this stuff too because it's brand new to me as well. When a son came through and spoke to his mother, and it has projected into my mind's eye the house, and I'm walking through this house like a tour, and I went into the living room and I turned to the right, and on the refrigerator is a pad. And he actually gave me what was written on that pad. And I told it to the mother. And she said, oh, my God, yes, those are the words. That's the phrase that are on that pad. I just wrote it this morning on that pad. Now, again, someone might think that's mundane. But that's pretty specific.
No way.
And that's
Yeah.
pretty amazing.
Yeah,
So,
to me, I mean, that's what it's all about. Because if anybody's dealing with any level of skepticism at all, they're looking for evidence. That's evidence. That's what we want. And then once you've delivered evidence like that, again, and I love it because they always use the same phrase. He couldn't have known that. He's told me things he couldn't have known. When you bring forth that kind of evidence, then when you bring through the more vague messages like I love you, I forgive you, those kinds of messages, it's okay because we know that you're communicating with our loved one in spirit.
that's right. We've established the validation. We've established the truth. We've established that this is them communicating for sure.
Yeah.
It's funny you talk about skepticism.
Yeah, well, it is, isn't it? Because that is something that I think of as, one of the things that gets in the way of us recognizing the communications from our loved ones in spirit. So, I mean, I think that when we're talking about after-death communications, that are not coming through a medium, but just trying to come through us, like you said, like through smells or, even through dreams. I mean, if we've had a dream visitation where you've had this really vivid dream and they came to us and we wake up in the morning, someone with a lot of skepticism, and I know because I was there, would just write it off, and not gain from the amazing benefit that can bring to comfort our grief. And so, what role does skepticism play in not being able to recognize these after-death communications? It's huge, isn't it?
It's huge because you're actually blocking the energy from happening. I just recently did a television show called Beyond Belief, and I did it for Nightline people. And it was pretty amazing how the skeptics, I only did it because the producer promised me that they would show things exactly as they appeared. Well, stupid me, didn't happen that way because they have their agenda. So I would never do a television show again where they can edit it. I will only do live television shows. Because we filmed for 12 hours, and the information that came through, they didn't show it. Did not even show it, but they created it the way they want to create it. And they made it a skeptical, cynical point of view. And it's a shame because, television, so forth, it's the greatest teacher we have.
Yeah.
And I think that skepticism comes a lot from fear. I think it's fear-based.
Right.
And I think a lot of skeptics, I've been a skeptic for a long time, and I'm not anymore because there came a point where I had to acknowledge what was coming through.
Yeah.
But I find a lot of people who are skeptics are fearful of the unknown. They're fearful of things. And a lot of people I feel too, if they realize that this is real, that these things are real, wow, they got to rethink their whole world. It changes their paradigm. And many people don't want to change their paradigm. They're so happy to be in that little comfort zone that anything that's challenging or threatening to that paradigm that they've already set up, they don't want to deal with it, especially when I bring through and other people bring through that you as a human being are responsible for your thoughts, your words, your deeds. What you give out, you are responsible for. And when you pass over, there's a life review. And you got to review all the good, the bad, and the indifferent things that you did. A lot of these people don't want to go near that. So it's easier for them, and instead of taking responsibility, to negate things, to negate the truth of certain things and be cynics and skeptics about it.
Well, you're right. I know that my own skepticism was based on a fear of being ripped off and a fear of being made the fool. And I wrote an article once, and I got thinking back, no wonder I feared being made the fool. When you think about the Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy, all of a sudden you're going to school talking about, you just got $1 from the Tooth Fairy, and half the kids are laughing at you because they found out long before you did. And you go through this humiliation as a child, and eventually, if that happens enough, or if it's traumatic enough, you become what I was this skeptic who was like, I am never going to be made the fool again. I'm not going to believe in trust. And who was telling me about these things? The people I trusted the most in life, my parents.
Right.
And they're the ones who lied to me. So if they're going to lie to me, I can't trust anybody anymore, right?
Exactly.
And then what happens is exactly what you said. Then what happens is we grow up to be adults, and now we have this sort of fear, these fears, and we start to explore spirituality. We might explore the afterlife, mediumship, and then we watch a television show where it's this unbiased journalism, and we think, oh, well, the media, we got to trust the media. The media.
Gotta trust the media. Oh yeah, gotta trust the media.
They
sure.
wouldn't throw us off, right? So then what they do is they slant it all one way, and they film things like you were just describing. They actually filmed some amazing evidence, what I could have at least seen as evidence of the afterlife, and then if they had just allowed me to choose for myself, but instead
if I let the cameraman and the sound man talk about it,
yeah,
it'd be a whole different show because they know what they saw.
Yeah.
So it really burns you when you work really hard with spirit, and the people in the audience, and the people in the audience are getting ripped off too. I remember there was one we did at this Beyond Belief thing, and a husband came to his wife and he said, "The Two of Hearts, you love the Two of Hearts. You left me in Vegas at the table at 3:00 in the morning." And she said, "Yes, I did." She was in the audience. "Yes, I did." And he's telling me about a Two of Hearts club. You know, that's his card, the Two of Hearts. She goes, "Yes, yes, yes." He said, "You have it on you." She pulls it out of her pocket.
Oh.
And I turned the Nightline and said, "Take that, Nightline," just as a joke.
Yeah.
Well, when I saw the piece, they didn't show anything about the reading, but they had some. They said he asked general questions, and then they showed me saying, "Take that, Nightline."
Oh, yeah.
How was
there you
that
go.
Completely out of context?
Yeah,
So
it
it's
gets
like,
distorted.
you can't trust them. You can't trust them. That's sad.
And so that's when they're videotaping, they're filming stuff, they can edit it, but then articles that are in the magazines and newspapers, the same thing. Now they interview you, now they pretty much write up whatever they want. Talk about editing, And it's the same thing. Some of them do a great job and they're very unbiased and they show the evidence, but then they'll also maybe bring a skeptic in to hear his thoughts. And that's fine.
That's fine. I'm great with that. Everything is fair, objective, great.
Yeah.
And I went to broadcasting school. I have a degree in broadcasting, and I remember it was very, very pushed into our heads. You must be objective. You must be objective. You cannot be biased. And you had it like it was almost like a law about this if you're going to broadcasting. And now I see it. It's like everything's all over the place with reality television, and they just do what they want to do, and they just like create these things which aren't even there. So
yeah,
it's sad.
And it's sad. It's sad for the public. It's sad for the people who are grieving, who could be really comforted by evidence of the afterlife, and
exactly be helped instead of hurt.
Yeah, and it stops them in their path. So they see something like that, and it stops them in their path, and they don't even investigate further because they believe what they saw. Now, at the same time, we talk about this. So these are some of the things that create skepticism and keep our skepticism going. Then there's, I think that the field itself, the psychic and medium field itself is partly to blame. And what do you think? I mean, don't you think there's areas that we can sort of up the standards a little bit?
You think?
Where did we start, right?
I used to go around the country, and I used to go to different places where they have mediumship. And I was appalled at the level and quality of mediumship, which they call mediumship, which I was appalled because I think that, this is not mediumship. It's general questions. It's like this is not what mediumship is.
Yeah.
And you listen, have people's lives in your hands, and you have to be sensitive to that. It's like being a doctor. You got to be really careful and sensitive to the people you're working with. And I've found a lot of these, people, organizations, not all of them, but some of them are very low level quality.
Yeah.
And that's not right. That's not right.
Now, and what are some of the either professional or ethical standards that you think every medium should sort of live by or work by?
Number one, if they're going to go into the profession of mediumship, they need to learn what mediumship is about. And then, I wouldn't operate on somebody unless I've gone to medical school.
Yeah.
They need to learn how to properly develop, and whether that's dealing with 2 years of working with energy, 2 years of psychic protection, 2 years of discerning between the spirits and information, spirit energy, and of your information. That's very, very important. Values and integrity, right up there.
Yeah.
Dealing with people, sensitivity to people, very important. You have to be able to put the time aside to develop properly and be patient about it. Nowadays people think you just take a pill and you're over something. You're done. Not true of mediumship. It is a process. I wouldn't really. I mean, people take a psychic class. They've done this with me, and they do a great job reading somebody. So it's like psychism, and
Yeah.
then they go on and start doing readings for people. I'm like, wait a minute, you're not ready yet.
Yeah.
You're raw. You're not cooked, and it's a shame. And I stopped teaching for many years because of that. Because
Yeah.
of that. And then Spirit said to me, well, it's not up to you, James. It's up to that individual. So. But that's really what it's about. If anyone wanted a reading, and they're looking, how do you get a reading from someone? I know you talk about this a lot. You work with this a lot in your work. That number one, go with someone who's referred to you. That's why on your site, it's great to have on your site the referrals. Of course, I'm not on that page. I don't know why.
No.
Joking. I'm joking.
You are actually. You're coming
I
up
know.
very soon. I'm finishing the article. I had to wait, just so the public knows. I don't add anybody to my personal recommend list unless I've had a reading from them or actually seen them live. And I had never seen you live before. And when I did, both
Well, that was a
happened.
pretty funny story. It was it was in Massachusetts, and I was at Newburyport, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you were in the audience, and it was a good night. We had a lot of great.
Oh, yeah.
And Bob comes running back in, and I first thing said, "There, Bob. Now did I pass your test?"
Well, first of all, I have to say, you gave a reading that night, and a little girl came through, and to this day, I'm not blowing smoke. It was the best reading I have ever seen, especially from stage, but even a private reading. The details that little girl conveyed to you were absolutely amazing. How her hair was done. For her burial, what dress she was wearing, something that was snuck into the coffin by one of the relatives, a favorite T-shirt of hers, and what it said on there. I mean,
Wow.
it just went on and on and on. It was an amazing reading. And I
I
think,
don't remember it. Thank you, because I don't remember them.
oh, I wish it was recorded and it was going so well that I think it had to go on for 15 minutes at least. It was just absolutely brilliant. And I was blown away that night and very excited about it. But it's that kind of mediumship that I want people to be able to experience. You have a lot of people on www.vanpraagh.com, VANPRAAGH.com, that you recommend as well on your own website. So
That's right. I'm like you in that you have to really test people, and I go through 3 levels of testing for anyone I have on my site.
Yeah.
And I've had many people say, I should be on your site. I've been doing this 20 years. And I'm like, well, then you have to give me a reading. You have to give 2 other people readings.
Yeah.
And some people refuse to. They say, oh, I'm better than that. Well, then fine. Bye-bye.
Well, that's
I won't
it.
let
I
them
mean,
on.
and it's not how long they've been doing it, because there are people who have been giving readings for 20 years, but they give 2 readings a week, on the
Right,
weekend,
right.
part-time. And then you got other people who are giving 10 readings a week, and they're just not, they don't have the same experience.
Right.
20 years at 10 readings a week, 20 years at 2 a month, I mean, they just don't compare.
Yeah, it's very true.
So it's, people shouldn't be fooled by how long someone has been in there.
Yeah.
Well, just to wrap up a little, going back to our loved ones trying to communicate with us in spirit, some of the things that people can do on their own. Obviously, we can go see a medium, and it's important that they choose a credible and experienced one. But what are some of the things that you might recommend that people can try to do to sort of maybe connect on their own?
Sure. One technique which works very, very well is I tell the person to go in a quiet space, write a letter to your loved one. Write a letter to your loved one and put everything out on that piece of paper, or everything that's in your heart. Just lay it out there. Fold up the letter, put it in an envelope, put their name on it, and put it in a drawer somewhere.
Yeah.
And then mark on your calendar 2 weeks later to come back at a certain time and sit down and another piece of paper. And now I want you to write from their point of view, from the spirit coming through to you, and just open up your mind and let them write. Just start writing a message from them to you.
Oh.
It works every time.
Oh,
yeah?
that's beautiful.
Another way they can do is, because you don't need a medium, you can be a medium yourself, really.
Yeah.
Before you go to sleep at night, you can ask them to appear in your dream state. Say, please come in my dream state. It might not happen that night. It might not happen for a week. It might not happen for a month, but it will happen. But just put it out there. Don't try to control it. Just put it out there and let it be. And the third thing I would say is to start meditation. Go within and begin to meditate and quiet the mind down, because as spirits come through to you, they come through in very subtle signs, very subtle whispers, very subtle ways, methods. And so you want to be able to be in that space of sensitivity in order to be able to hear them and feel them and even see them. So the more you meditate, the more you sensitize yourself, the easier it will be to receive.
Oh, that's beautiful. I had a couple questions about that. Well, first of all, is you talked about dreams. I've heard people say, my loved one came to my sister in a dream, but hasn't come to me, and they're upset about that. Why might something like that happen?
Because we have to remember that we're all electromagnetic energy. We're all made up this way electrically. And what we think is created. And there are some people who try too hard. They try way too hard. Oh, Johnny, come through to me, come through to me, come through to me, come through to me. And they're trying so hard that actually what it does is blocks. It blocks the atmosphere around the mind. It'll block it. So they can't get through as easily. But the sister who's not even thinking about it, it's just one thought, they can get through easily that way. It's the same thing in an audience. When I have an audience and I inevitably I say to the audience, if I have a husband and wife here, I always give the message. The message will always be given to the husband who didn't believe in this, that was dragged here by the wife. He'll always get the message, somebody coming through to him. Why is that? He doesn't even believe in this sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's just it. He's not trying to control the situation.
Yeah.
He's not trying to push the energy or pull the energy toward him. He's being very neutral, so it's easier for spirit to get through. So that's really what you want to do, is you want to be very, very neutral.
Interesting. So there's a big difference between needing and wanting a message from someone, huh? There's different energies, apparently, from that.
Different energy.
And
just be open to whatever happens.
And surrendering, just surrendering to...
Surrender, great one. Surrendering.
Well, that's great. But so meditation, has anybody ever, created a habit of meditation and then all of a sudden found they started maybe hearing loved ones communicating to them? Yeah, okay. I was thinking more on the, all right. So is that...
Well, I teach in my classes. I teach in my classes meditation every day, because even in my work, when I first started doing this work, and I didn't even know I could see spirit or hear spirit until I started meditating. And the more I meditated, the more, and this was informal meditation, I didn't know anything about it. And once I started meditating, quieting down the mind, the chatter, I started seeing and hearing and becoming much more sensitive to that energy that was around me. So the more someone meditates, the easier it is to see and hear them and be sensitive to them, for sure. A secret in meditation, which a lot of people don't know, is when a lot of people hesitate meditating because they think, oh, that chatter in my mind, I'm not going to be able to turn it off. I'm not going to be able to turn it off. Fine. What you want to do is this. When you sit down and you're ready to meditate, make sure it's in a space which is quiet if you can, from the outside noises, and give yourself that time. Turn off phones and all the rest of it. And you want to be open and surrender, like you say, surrender to what you receive. It is normal for you to sit there and think, okay, what am I going to have for food tonight? Oh, boy, I wish that neighbor would stop mowing their lawn. Oh, boy, that dog is barking. Normal things. What happens is, if you realize that you're going to have those chattering, that you will hear that noise, don't judge it. Just let it be okay. It's like being in a lake in a boat. You're going to hit a rock or you're going to hit a certain current. Fine, you're still going to float. If you take away judgment and you neutralize it, you'll go deeper. Yeah. So when you don't judge, and this is true not only of meditation but of life, when you don't judge something, you're not putting energy on it.
Yeah.
So you can have there's a dog barking. Okay, acknowledge the dog is barking. That's fine, and then move on. Oh. Okay, I hear that. That's okay. Moving on, no problem. Yeah. Don't judge it. Don't sit there saying, oh, I wish it would stop. Just realize that's the way it is. Whenever I do meditation seminars, I will always start off with a group of saying, okay, breathe in, breathe out. And you might hear the sound of my voice. You'll be hearing that. Hear the music behind. Any outside noises, like the kitchen is behind me in the hotel and they're throwing around the dishes. Any outside noises, don't distract you. Just make you go deeper.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It makes you go further and further and brings you right back to center. And it works. Yeah. As long as you don't put the judgment on it, it works.
That's great. Do you? I know you have an online course where people can learn about meditation on there.
Several, Bob.
You also have, and this is on your website, vanpraagh.com. You also have at least one book. I know you have a book on meditation. You do. How many books do you have, actually?
I have a book solely on meditation. It's called Meditations. It's
okay.
Called Meditation.
Yeah, you should know that was a good title.
Give you them, Bob.
But no, I think it's important.
I have a book on meditations.
I think it's
a book-
important.
It's a good book. It's a great
But
one.
do you sell like audio of guided meditations or anything like that?
Yes, on my website, on the store page.
Okay, because that's a good way to start. Is it not?
Yeah. The best way is through meditation, for sure, definitely. That's the way to start. It's through meditation.
Yeah, but I
and
mean,
getting to the habit of that, the discipline of that.
But I mean, even with guided meditation, like people, because to me it's a lot easier if I'm listening to someone guide me through meditation. Do you recommend that over?
Yes.
You do.
Well, yeah, very much so. Some people need that guidance. Some
Yeah.
people need someone else to help them walk them through it, which is fine. I do that in my meditations. I do that with people. And
Yeah.
it does help them because it alleviates them trying to control it, and it lets them have the space to go off and have their own journey. They don't have to. They can get out of that left brain. They can just completely surrender to the right brain, so they receive the information even that much more. So yeah, guided meditation I think is definitely the best, no doubt about it. And I have them on my website.
Okay, that's great. And again, www.vanpraagh.com, vanpraagh.com.
It's a hard name to. That's a very difficult name. It's karmic, I think, and it's something in a past life.
Yeah,
It deserves
it is.
this
I know.
name that misspelled all the time. So.
I'm sure it is. Praagh. Yeah, that's a good one. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground here, and I think it's going to be very helpful to people. I do recommend that they go to your website. Just for the meditation stuff, there's also an online course for intuition. And I love the one about life after loss. What's that course about?
It's great. It's based on my book, Healing Grief, the third book I wrote, and it's really for anyone who is dealing with loss of all different types, not only death, but loss of a job, loss of a marriage, loss of age, loss of loss in itself.
Yeah.
There's so many components, and people are affected by that in so many ways, and it affects your stress levels so many ways. So the book and the online course about life after loss really has been beneficial for people going through those situations in life. So I would urge people to try that one as well.
Okay. James, thank you once again. I appreciate you coming back. It's always a pleasure. I always learn so much myself, and I know the public is as well. So thank you so much.
Anytime, Bob. Thank you.
All right, James. Take care now.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.